OG Anunoby has dominated the last 10 games for the New York Knicks. We're going to tell you how he's gotten it done and what it means for the team's championship hopes.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Gavin, Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, and of course, the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. He's Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of the Strickland, the greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. You can check them out on all forms of social media at thestrick.land. This is, of course, Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 whole days a week. And be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. We also want to remind you, if you're a real sicko and a daily podcast is not enough for you, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. That's right. We are introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter, your one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter to get daily musings from Alex and I, our fantastic team of national writers here at Locked On, and of course, Josh Lloyd with the latest and greatest in fantasy basketball. And we'll remind you again at the end of the show, but we want to let you know, if you subscribe, you have a chance to win one of 3 amazing prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your Sports Cave setup, a $300 Game Time gift card, or a $200 Fanatics gift card. Easy and free to enter. All you have to do is subscribe between April 7th, 2025 and April 30th, 2025 to be automatically entered to win. Again, that's LockedOnDaily.com. One final note before we get into this OG Anunoby centric episode. Oh, actually, we do not have a Tug sponsor today, so we're going to get into it. What's the best version of OG Anunoby? Will his play translate to the playoffs? And how will Jalen Brunson's return ultimately affect things? How do we get the best of everyone at the same time, Alex? I think is the question we're most trying to get at in this episode. But we start with what exactly is working for OG right now?
Yeah, so first let's dive into the stats a little bit, just the baseline numbers. So his last 8 games for OG, 28.5 points per game, 5 boards, 2.5 assists per game, 58% from the field, 47% from 3, 92% from the free throw line. During that time, he's been shooting 70% at the rim on a league leading for forwards, 158 attempts at the rim over that stretch. He's drawing fouls on 12% of his shots, which is 82nd percentile. He's been shooting 16 of 28 on corner threes, and also 10 of 26 on non-corner threes, which he's at 38% on the season after 4 straight years of 34% and under. But if you even pull the numbers back a little further and you pull it back to just since March 1st, so since the calendar turned over to March, he's had 19 games where he's been at 23.8 points per game, 5.3 boards, 2.7 assists, 1.7 steals, 0.9 blocks. Still, even not quite shooting as high, but 49.4% from the field, 41.7% from 3 on 7.3 attempts, and 84.1% from the free throw line. So for the better part of a quarter of this season, he's been playing like an all-star. And you could, if you go back to the beginning of the season when he was also playing really well, maybe you can cobble together about 35 games or so that he's been playing like a real stud, like a real superstar in this season. Also his last 10 games, he's at 10 straight games with 23 or more points, which, crazy fact from the Knicks today, I don't even know how this is possible, but he's the first person since Karl-Anthony to do that. It seems impossible that Jalen Brunson has not gone 10 straight games with 23 or more points, but I assume that somewhere in the middle of every 20-plus point stretch, Jalen Brunson has one where he scores 22, I guess, and that explains that odd statistical anomaly. But Gavin, there's been some more stats that kind of illustrate why OG has been playing a little better lately, or how he's been playing better lately. I don't want to totally hog all of them because we pulled a bunch of them, and I want to give you a chance to present some of the stats. So what are some other things that have kind of added up for OG so far in this hot stretch that he's having right now?
Yeah, first of all, some good just general ones from Knicks film school. The 276 points scored in his last 10 games, the most in any 10-game stretch of his career. That is top 5 in the NBA over that stretch. I want to look back at that number you mentioned earlier, the 70% of the rim on a league leading 158 attempts for forwards over that run, and just kind of how we got there in terms of his actual play on the court. Obviously, a lot of that has come in transition. He's been like that. That has always been probably the greatest strength of his offense, right? Of course his defense, his ability to play make, get himself going. I've been more closely examining what he's been doing in the half court, because we have seen in the past, like, OG have somewhat of a limited bag, right? He's someone who is aspired to be Kawhi Leonard, but just has not quite had the skill set to match that. Like when I was talking to DJ Zulo over the summer when we did our little player preview of him, and I was saying, like, is there an offensive leap in there? And he was saying, look, at 26, like, I don't really think it's realistic. And I don't say that's like clown on DJ. Like I was of the same mind, because even when like it's gone well for him, and like it did early in the season, a lot of it was just him getting really hot from three and putting together like one or two like simple dribble combos, and mostly relying on his strength to create separation, right? Like putting out a little arm check, like laying his shoulder down and hitting like a pull-up mid-range jumper, or doing the same thing and getting all the way to the rim. We're seeing more sophisticated combos, right? We talked a lot about the drive he had on Oso Iguodala, the one he had, I believe it was against Evan Mobley against the Cavs, or no, it's Jared Allen, where he had that just like gravity defying hop step into the lane. I think we are seeing years and years of behind the scene work manifest itself. Like, anyone who's ever watched an NBA player work out, you know these guys can do, maybe Kendrick Perkins aside, judging by his back video, but you know these guys can do so much more than they actually get to show on the court. It's typically the stars who just have like the leeway to show the fullest extent of what they can do. And in some ways, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then they actually develop like the confidence to go to those moves in games. And I think Brunson being out for the last 15 games was exactly the window OG needed to start employing these moves in game, putting together multi-dribble combos, and you combine that with his athleticism around the rim, right? Like on that drive on Iguodala, even when he doesn't have full momentum, still able to go off of 1 foot and dunk it. He's using his like arms so well around the rim. Again, I personally think this should be illegal, but his ability to just like throw an elbow into someone, like we saw it on Ryan Dunn, who's like a really talented young defender, and OG is so strong. Like if he can get away with that and basically attack the rim like a running back and use his elbow as a battering ram, like we saw from Julius Randle for years and years and years, like he becomes nearly unstoppable once he's at the rim. Alex, I'll let you dive a little deep into the numbers, and then maybe we can get into some ways like Tom Thibodeau can continue to emphasize all this, even though Jalen Brunson is actually back now.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been showing, at least especially in this first game back with everybody back on the floor, a 141.3 offensive rating in 24 minutes together against the Suns. So I mean, that was a great starting point, I think, and maybe where we can start delving into how these guys might all fit together and make this all work together. Now that Jalen Brunson's back, now that Karl-Anthony Towns seems to be back in the sense of playing a little more aggressive on the offensive end. Mikal Bridges obviously found a different version of himself with Jalen Brunson out. So it's adding a guy who can be potentially a 30 usage guy in Jalen Brunson back to the offense, where, in theory, there is more than 100% usage available, because usage is an amalgamation of how often you either take a shot or assist on a basket. So you can have a total of, I don't know, 120% usage or something like that over the course of a whole team, depending on who's, how many assists you're getting and stuff like that. But there's only so much ball to go around. So let's take our first little break here real quick. Come back in. We can start talking through how the Knicks can maybe have that gargantuan 141.3 offensive rating be a little more the norm going forward, with all these guys healthy and everybody playing their best ball right now. And hopefully we'll get to start seeing it with the game against the Celtics today. So we'll come back in and talk through that.
But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match On retirement contributions, the privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive with Robinhood Gold. Your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of a high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national savings average account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right, what up, guys? We are back on Locked On Knicks. So we wanted to get into the Jalen Brunson of it all because this can really flip either way. Like one of the stats we didn't get to in the first segment was like I think one of the simplest, but also one of the most important. OG Anunoby. I sorted it this way just because it was kind of the easiest way for me to look it up. But 5 drives per game pre All-Star break. Last 10 games, he is at 10 per game. So that is double usage, at least attacking the basket, right? And some of that's OG being more aggressive, more confident. I think it mostly stems, Alex, from him simply having the basketball in his hands more. And to your point, it becomes a little bit of a math problem, right? Can Jalen Brunson still have monster usage? And to some extent, you want Jalen Brunson to have monster usage because we've seen in the grinder that is the playoffs, like he is able to be efficient over soaking up a large number of possessions. And by limiting your ball movement, by limiting the number of people who touch the ball, you have low turnover offense. And that's generally been a successful recipe for Tom Thibodeau in the regular season. That being said, in the playoffs, it has been a good recipe for Jalen Brunson to shine and be really good. It has not been a recipe for the Knicks to be particularly good offensively. Obviously, you put a little bit of a mulligan last year because they had so many injuries and they had limited options, including losing OG for the second half of the Pacers series. But I do think the pathway, as we saw a little bit in that Suns game, to elite offense is finding a way to maximize all 4 of their big 4 at the same time. That includes Mikal Bridges, that includes Karl-Anthony Towns. And frankly, I think that is the only chance they have of beating teams or even being competitive against teams like the Celtics and the Cavs. In your mind, like, how do they actually get that done and ensure that Jalen can still lean into being one of the best players in the world, maybe one of the top 3 or 4 playoff scorers in the world, while also incorporating everyone else and kind of maximizing the ceiling of this group?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm almost a broken record at this point. Like I bring this up so many times per season, but the number one thing is just getting Jalen working off the ball. And I think that that's like the number one thing. I'm actually literally as you were talking, I was like, man, I need my go-to stat, which is NBA stats, tracking, shots dashboard, and then find what Jalen Brunson is shooting on spot up threes this year, or rather catch and shoot threes. 42.5%. He only takes 1.9 of them per game. He shoots 37% on 4 pull-up threes a game. So, I mean, you're not going to complain about pull-up threes being 37%. That's an elite number. But the fact of the matter is that if you can get Brunson off ball and get him catch and shoot opportunities, your chances of it going in go up by 5.5%. And it's very basic math. Like, I think that the more that they can do that, especially now that they have 2 extra guys on the team, and that's not even counting Josh Hart, who I think was already pretty comfortable, like driving in. He just doesn't always necessarily have as easy of a pathway to making something happen with a drive as like an OG does, where we're seeing now that OG's just using his strength to like shack his way in there and just like shove someone out of the way and dunk it. You don't necessarily get that out of Josh Hart, but he can drive, he can kick. Mikal Bridges has been showing, the midi is going strong for him. So he's still not quite getting to the rim as often as you would like, but the mid-range shot is going in a lot. He's also kicking out of drives more than he was before and being tasked with running pick and rolls more and stuff. So give Jalen Brunson a break a little bit, like put him more in those situations in a good way, representative of when he was on Dallas. Like on Dallas, he was often playing off the ball. He had to kind of find his way as the co-star to Luka Doncic, who was sort of the Jalen Brunson of that relationship, of, having the ball often, by design in the offense, being the guy that everything ran through. And, I think for Brunson, it's good that he has those skills because as we've seen, like at his best, like in times when Julius Randle, for example, would kind of have a game where he was going off or whatever. Like Brunson is perfectly capable to move around the perimeter, to find his spots, to keep moving without the ball in his hands. You're not going to run into any situations where like this is something that's plagued, like, for example, Russell Westbrook for large parts of his career, like where he was so accustomed to being like a 30 usage guy that once he had to switch into a complementary role, like later on in his career, it took him like 4 years to figure out how to play without the ball and be a useful player without the ball in his hands on a winning team. And so, Brunson doesn't have to go through any of those growing pains because he already knows how to do it, because that's kind of how he grew up in the NBA, is not being the lead guy. So to me, not to turn this into a Jalen Brunson episode, but that's kind of always my answer for like, how do you get these other guys going more? It's give them the ball. And I think that, with OG and Mikal playing the way that they are now, you don't want to like run the risk of destroying the rhythm that they've built, which was largely due to the fact that they had to play like more like star wings these last few games. Like they had to play more like, I don't know, like a Paul George or something, or like a Kawhi Leonard, you know what I mean? And like, I know that people have been saying at the loftiest, like, oh, OG's playing like Kawhi, hey, maybe that's a little bit of hyperbole, but like at his best, he's the stuff that he's doing with the ball in his hands. And to your point, the stuff that he probably didn't quite feel the confidence to bust out in game that he now kind of had a license to, and then has gotten to play with and perfect a bit in game. Don't let those skills deteriorate at all. Just let him keep getting the ball. It's not, we were so statistical in the first segment, and this is all just purely like vibes from me here, but like, I feel like that is the answer. It's just make a constant, like make a concerted effort to get the ball in his hands and in Mikal Bridges' hands, maybe even to a greater extent, because Mikal is the one who struggles a bit with kind of campaigning for himself, or representing himself and acting like he wants the ball and whatever. But I think that's the answer. It's just and it's not a knock on Brunson because he's still elite, but it's just like, at times you're going to want to try to get these guys going early, especially in playoff games where, if they get going early, then that could leave Brunson even fresher to potentially close a game for you where he's at his best.
Yeah, and I think part of the beauty of it is like to get Brunson off the ball. A lot of times that means starting with Brunson on the ball. I mean, we saw like the Knicks. I feel like they scored every time Brunson passed out of a double team. I'd have to do a full rewatch to confirm that, but they were really, really effective in that. Like anytime he was trapped, like it was a lot of times it was Mikal as the outlet and Mikal driving and making a play for someone else out of Brunson drawing two. And if Brunson doesn't draw two, and like, especially like, again, this is my version of a broken record, especially when you have Deuce McBride out on the floor instead of Josh Hart, like I think the decision becomes impossible. And I'm hoping that finally dawns on Tom Thibodeau. But if you have five shooters, like I've seen the Thunder with so much less offensive talent on the floor than what the Knicks can put on the floor, absolutely rip good defenses to shreds just by playing five out. And if you have Deuce McBride out there, you are putting defenses basically outside of the Celtics, who are like fine guarding on an island, but that is the exception, not the rule, into an impossible situation where you say, all right, either you're letting Jalen Brunson attack with a spread floor, or you're doubling him and you're letting these guys play 4-on-3. And Josh Hart, to your point, was really crucial. I think even more so in the past, because he was sort of the tip of the spear in the 4-on-3, right? He was the Draymond Green, but now you're seeing Mikal making better decisions with the basketball. You're seeing OG Anunoby getting downhill, drawing help, but making better decisions with the basketball. And when you have multiple guys that need to be doubled already playing 4-on-3, that is how you break defenses. That is how, in the crucible of the playoffs, you still find great looks. So I think Deuce being out there is important, but I think whether or not he is, and I lean towards, again, we live in a Tom Thibodeau based reality, like where Deuce probably won't be out there. I still think you can figure things out by mixing up your screeners, right? We've seen Tibbs get really creative because he's been forced to with Brunson out. Like he had campaigned screening for Karl-Anthony Towns, so Trae Young would be forced to guard Karl-Anthony Towns, and it was like an automatic foul or an automatic bucket for Cat. The one time they ran that play, you can do the exact same thing with Brunson, and it's going to be even deadlier. That's a great way to use him off the ball, right? You have Brunson set a screen for Cat, and then Brunson pops, and as a defense, right, are you switching that? Are you going under and you letting Cat shoot a three? Like, there's not really a good answer, and we haven't seen Tibbs do that much. But to the focus of this episode, like, look, like DJ Zulo tweeted out one play where OG screened for Brunson, and like like Phoenix did all they could do, because either OG's going to pop for three, and right now he's wide open. You switch it, and it's Brunson attacking a big or OG able to attack a small. That's what the Suns did. They put Colin Gillespie on him. Brunson got the ball. Give Brunson credit for doing this. Got off the ball, got it right to OG. OG drives Gillespie, who's like 6'2", a Ryan Arcidiacono clone out of Villanova, draws help, entire defense collapses, sprays it out to the left corner, and it's a three-pointer for Mikal Bridges. Again, that works even better when Deuce is in the game, but even without him, Alex, they can generate open shots, because right now, like with the Knicks starting five, like again, unless you're a defense like the Celtics where you don't need a hiding spot, there's really no obvious hiding spot for a defender when OG and Mikal are playing with this kind of confidence and aggression.
Yeah, and that aggression has led to much greater percentages of OG being fouled, which has been honestly a huge part of this scoring metamorphosis for him, because the three-point shot hasn't gone in every single night, and yet he still managed to amass 23 or more points in 10 straight games. So we're going to get into some of those numbers, how that can help him in the playoffs, help the Knicks in the playoffs, and much more in just a moment when we get back in. But first, we wanted to let you know about BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health, but traditional in-person therapy can be expensive, often ranging from $100 to $250 per session. That's where BetterHelp comes in. With online therapy, you get quality care at a price that makes sense, saving you time and money. Therapy isn't just for life's toughest moments. It can help with everyday stress, learning how to set boundaries, or developing positive coping skills. Having access to support when you need it can make a big difference. Your well-being is worth it. So visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. All right, Gavin, we're back in to keep talking through the OG breakout. And I teased it before we went to break, but there's some really encouraging numbers that we haven't gotten into yet that relate to how OG is drawing fouls, which I think has been maybe the biggest thing. We mentioned the drive numbers going up. The fact that he's getting in there is one thing, and he's getting the dunks and everything else. But the other thing is that he's throwing his body around. He's turning that into foul shot attempts, and he's finishing through for and ones even at a higher rate right now. So some numbers from Cleaning the Glass that I pulled on that. So shooting fouled percentage since March 1st. So this is from that 19 game sample that I mentioned. So again, almost a quarter of the season. He is currently at 13.1% over the last 19 games. That's up from 10.3% for the entire season. So that includes what he's been doing over the last month and change, still only at 10.3% shooting fouled percentage since the beginning of March. So that's huge. That means that 3% more of the time when he goes in, 3 more out of every 100 drives that he makes or every shot attempts that he takes, he's getting fouled, which I guess it's more impressive when you consider his overall shot attempts, because he's also taking and making way more threes. It means he's basically he is more or less mastered like the hardened shot graph of 3-pointers or all the way in, get fouled, or make a shot in close, except for he's a much larger human being and has more of a presence to be able to knock guys out of the way, get up for dunks, whatever. But then also his and one percentage since March 1st, 23.4%, up from 22.5% for the season. So again, like 1% improvement over the last month and change compared to the season as a whole of finishing through contact and getting and one opportunities. So that's also great. Some other random numbers I'll just throw out there too, just because I pulled them, so may as well get them out there. His assist percentage is up from 8.4% for the season, which is 36th percentile for wings, to 11.6%, which is 62nd percentile. So he's also, this is just mostly anecdotal without going and watching every single assist that he's had, but I'm pretty sure for the most part, those are coming off of drives as well. So he's utilizing that driving ability, not just to get inside and score for himself and draw fouls, but also has increased the amount of times that he's generating an assist to up 3% over the last month and change. Also his usage percentage, which includes, as I was saying earlier, whether a possession ends in a shot attempt from a player or an assist from a player, that's up about 4% from 18% to 22% since the month of March began. And then also, just for fun, his block percentage is up from 1.2 to 1.3%, and his steal percentage is up from 1.8% to 2%, which seems small, but every fraction of a percentage point is fairly impressive when it comes to steal and block percentage. So Gavin, just all around, he's doing so much better. And I really think that a lot of the numbers I just brought up, mostly due to the fact that they're stemming from him driving more and generating those free throw opportunities, and in general making teams more afraid of him on the inside. I think with the Knicks' ideal lineup, which is their starting lineup, it bodes well for the playoffs that you could potentially have this version of OG Anunoby with 5 out spacing around him. And if that's the case, like, and you have a spotting up Brunson who hits 43% of his shots, and then also an OG who's getting you 10 free throw attempts per game, which you probably figure goes down a little bit in the playoffs, but potentially not that much. That's a really, really deadly combo, and could, I mentioned it the other day, but to make like a Mets reference with baseball season, like, could be your key to like a Danny Murphy 2015 kind of run, where OG might be the key to push this team a little further than maybe we thought possible in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the passing is kind of the element of that stood out the most to me. And to your point, like with Brunson back, it gives OG a runway, right? It's not him, and he's been super good at this, but like it's not him attacking from a standstill and having to like jab and go into someone's body. Like you get it off a screen. A lot of times it's going to be a smaller guard recovering to him, and that gives him a head start against a smaller player. That if he continues this up, if the right actress is watching courtside based on the games OG's done well recently, he's going to be a demon, right? Going downhill, throwing his body around, and like I've never seen OG Anunoby pass the ball like this. Again, that could just be a product of opportunity, but even I don't think we mentioned this the other night in the Hawks game. Like he had a play where he was driving. It was almost like a Nash dribble, right? He was driving parallel to the baseline, and he throws like a no look behind the back pass to Josh Hart at the block. Josh ends up getting the shot knocked away, but that's not really the point. It's that he's seeing that and he's finding that he's like a number of plays where like he will drive, get back to the middle of the floor, and then hit hard on a cut or hit pressures for a dunk. Like we have seen more of that, I think, in the last 10 games than we saw in the previous year and a half of his Knicks career combined. And to me, that is ultimately the key. Like when we look to these next couple of games against the Pistons, against the Celtics, against the Cavs, of course, in the playoffs, we should mention with Detroit, I believe, I'm going to double check right now, losing tonight, even coming into tonight, it was an 85% chance that the Knicks were going to face the Pistons. The Pistons did lose to the Kings by 10. So I think it is almost a sure thing at this point, especially if the Knicks beat Detroit on Thursday. That'll be your first round matchup, and we'll dive deep on that. We have Kuka Heel of Locked On Pistons coming on in a couple of days. But I say all that to say, even against them, like much less the Celtics and Cavs, like they've been one of the NBA's 5 or 6 best defenses for about 40 or 50 games right now. I think the ability of guys other than Jalen Brunson to make quick, correct decisions off the dribble is going to define how far this Knicks team goes and how successful they are on the offensive end. OG trending the right direction with that. Mikal, Cat, I think all have been trending up with more responsibility sans Brunson, and it should only be easier with Brunson, and it can be made even easier with Deuce McBride on the floor. I know I'm repeating myself, but to me, like the formula, it's screaming at me, Alex. It's so obvious for this team to have success, and I just hope Tom Thibodeau, Jalen Brunson, this whole team leans into it.
I hope so as well. And, I will say, as just sort of a cherry on top, the really nice thing about this OG breakout is that he's made, and Mikal too, to an extent, although it's obviously just like popped more with OG, but with both these guys finally reaching this level of competence on offense, it is good to know that like you can deploy the defensive death lineup later in a game too, and feel comfortable if that lineup has to stay out there for like a possession before you can get a timeout or something, and play an offensive possession together. Like I think it's a lot less scary now to think about a world where you potentially have, Mitchell Robinson out there at center, OG, Mikal, Deuce McBride, and yeah, I guess Josh Hart, out there to complete the defensive lineup. That's less scary now, because now you don't have that question of, oh crap, who can you give the ball to try to get, a potential game-winning shot or whatever. And maybe you're not like over the moon about the idea of having to have OG sauce one up, but if he keeps playing anywhere near the level that he has been, I think you could pretty comfortably say, like, sure, let OG try to take a last shot. I mean, he's already proven that he can make one in the Memphis game, which ironically was fed to him on a silver platter by Jalen Brunson. But he's hit a game-winning shot this year so far. Now he's got the self-creation to go with it. He's also got just the free throw drawing ability, which is great late in the game if you need to stop a clock or whatever, to have someone that can just put their head down, get inside, draw a foul, stop the clock, allow for substitutions, all that stuff. So as far as how all this is going to translate to the playoffs, like, I think it's going to be swimmingly. And, I think, um, we were talking about it on the last show where I was saying, like, I like Cat getting more inside and just at least getting in that mindset of that for playoff play. Although I'm with you, like, I do think they should design more 3-point shots for him. I like it from OG too. I like that pretty much every player on this team recently, in lieu of Brunson being on the floor, has kind of found their ability to get all the way inside, draw free throws, or at least get to whatever their comfort zone is on the inside. For Mikal, again, that's like, he's made more cuts and gotten all the way to the rim, but he's also like, he'll drive in and then kind of stop for his little pull up middies or whatever. But it's working for him. Like, he's finally found comfort. I'm glad that all these guys have kind of found their go-tos at all 3 levels now, or especially at the 2 levels that matter, at the 3-point line, and then whatever they do close to the rim, whatever their comfort zone is, whether it's a dunk, a floater, a layup, a pull-up midi, whatever. Every single guy seems to have like those 2 levels figured out. And that's what's going to matter in the playoffs, I think, is having all those guys be able to make shots in a variety of ways, beat different looks on defense, beat when, certain guys are getting doubled and other guys need to step up. Probably Brunson getting doubled, maybe Cat getting doubled. These guys are starting to finally figure out their spots and everything. And OG's been the one that it just pops the most with. But as an overall referendum on the team, I'm like super happy of where things are at right now.
Yeah, it's exciting. My final note will be let the defense decide what you do. Like, we've seen times this year where Trae Young's on Mikal Bridges and Tom Thibodeau or Jalen Brunson, I guess we don't know for sure, just says, nope, business as usual. Cat, come up, screen for me. And Mikal shoots like 7 times in a game with that matchup. And in the playoffs, like, the margins are so thin. The weak points are even less obvious. It is maybe the first thing you learn, like, in almost any sport, like let the defense tell you what the right play is. And I hope the Knicks stick with that, because I'll emphasize it again, like, at least offensively. Defensively, we can question it all we want. Offensively, talent is not an issue for this team. They have the talent to be as deadly as any group in the league offensively, maybe this side of Boston, but I would even borderline include Boston in there. Like, they are capable. They just have to make the right decisions. But until we get to see that play out tomorrow night against the Celtics, he's Alex Wolfe. I'm Gavin Schall. We'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks. But before we go, one final reminder on how you can win a prize. The New York Knicks are ready for playoff basketball, and Locked On Knicks has you covered every step of the way. Subscribe to the Locked On Knicks podcast newsletter for expert analysis, insider insights, and all the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free. Plus, as a subscriber, you'll be entered to win one of these 3 amazing prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your Sports Cave setup, a $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. It's easy and free to enter. Simply subscribe between April 7th, 2025 and April 30th, 2025 to be automatically entered to win. Don't miss a moment of their championship run. Join the Locked On Knicks newsletter today and experience the playoffs like never before. Subscribe today and enter to win by clicking the link in the description over at LockedOnDaily.com.